Well, hello everyone. Finally got on air. As usual, slight technical difficulties are always getting in the way. In time, I hope to be able to get that better. I actually had one of those serendipity moments this afternoon where I was trying to work something out, and I suddenly thought, aha, I could probably improve my audio doing something along these lines. But I've got to go through the cable collection and find the appropriate plugs and cables. Maybe I can get the sound a little bit better in the future. Hopefully you're hearing the music in the background. If not, don't worry, I'm going to post it up after the show. And what we have today is Axiom of Sound. And this is the oh geez, I've got to remember the name of it. Space Mix, I think it was. Anyway, I'll have that. In the title. A few words about Axiom of Sound. This would probably be reasonably typical of his work. He's been releasing music under the name of Axiom Sound for around about 4 years, but he's been releasing music overall since about 1988, so he's a very well-seasoned and experienced musician. And, it shows up in the level of his production. Hopefully it's showing up in this audio recording now, as I said. If not, listen to it on the playlist. I'll upload it after the show. It's very noticeable how professionally he is with all of his work. And I've had the privilege of knowing him for about 3 years, and been very helpful with advice on technical issues for me, and really knows his stuff. As far as his music goes, what I'm hearing, hopefully you're hearing it at the moment, he lays down very good, solid rhythms to his music, and he seems to have I would just say, just a lot of character to the timbre of his music, and that's something I like about the music. It's got very growly sort of synth sound to it, while at the same time he gets these very ethereal pads going on as well. So there's a lot of contrast going on in his music between fast and slow, soft and hard, so it's quite interesting to listen to. He seems to mainly sit in more electronic genres, though I have noticed in recent times he's been concentrating a bit on ambient pieces. So anyway, I highly recommend that you look up his discography, and generally I suppose the best place to find his stuff would be on SoundCloud under his profile name of Axiom of Sound. He's a very prolific music releaser, and I'd say it's not unusual for him to put out something new on a weekly basis, or when not weekly, probably fortnightly. If you're watching Axiom Sound, I didn't really notice that you released anything this week, so I hope I didn't miss it. Something seems to be going weird with my Facebook updates on my other computer these days. I had a Windows 10 update a little while ago, a few weeks ago, and ever since then, Google Chrome hasn't been working. And I'm forced to use Firefox, and I'm not used to using that for one, but for two, it's funny. I don't seem to be getting any of my normal Facebook updates and things like that. YouTube messages and that, I am getting them, but sometimes it's quite late before they come through. So yeah, listen to Axiom of Sound. Like prolific writer, lots of stuff there. I think one of the unfortunate issues about SoundCloud is that unless you're paying for a full professional account, they tend to not so much cut off your old music as to put it in some sort of archive file where it's not generally available to the public. So I have spoken to that sound a couple of times. I should be able to release a few videos on YouTube, because even if it's just a thumbnail picture, you've got a bit of a visual there, and the advantage of YouTube is the work will stay there. And truth be told, it has done a couple of things on YouTube, and it's got quite a good feel for the video artwork as well, and good practice like that. So well worth chasing up, and I'm hoping to be able to talk him into doing an interview one of these days in the future when I get all that sorted out. On the subject of interviews, I'm going to try to attempt my first interview next week. I've been talking to one of the members of a band called La Luna. If you haven't heard of them, I'm playing a bit of them next week, and I'm talking to Mike Hewitts from La Luna if the technical hookup all works out all right. And I did experiment with that today, and it was what you might call a mixed success. It seemed to be coming out from this computer, but I wasn't having any luck getting it on the other computer, because I got given a nice notification that Firefox won't handle any Hangouts conversations, and it's Google's fault, and they're going to have to update Chrome to come to the party. But if I like, I can go to some other providers, and one of the ones I checked out, of course, was the first one on the list, Windows Explorer, who are quite happy to provide you a link up with Hangouts so long as you buy it from the shop. Funny coincidence that. I don't know if I'm being cynical, but a lot of what's been going on with my Chrome and Microsoft issues in the last few weeks seem to be connected with a little bit of a range war that they're having. I've heard this also involves Amazon. Some of you out there might have heard of it, that Amazon are refusing to sell or support any Google products, and there's a bit of a bickering match going on between some of these people and some of the big players like Facebook and Firefox and so forth. They're drawing lines and taking sides, and I don't know where it's all going to end up. I'm hoping that they'll end up coming to an agreement, because I think we'll all agree that at the end of the day, the losers are the general public, because we like to use all of their services. We don't play favourites, and just as long as everything's working, we're fine. So a bit of housekeeping to start things up. I'd like to ask you to please subscribe if you can, because I am trying to pick up a bit of momentum with this channel, and due to various complicated reasons and all that, having some subscribers gives you a little bit more leverage with YouTube and people like that. And with this channel, I'm starting off afresh, and I've virtually only been picking up subscribers since I've started this show. With my other channel, I found that my status was reduced last year when Google decided that anyone who had under 10,000 views was likely to be a fake profile, despite the fact that I've had a profile with them since I think 2009. So I would have thought if I was some sort of bot and putting out fake views and things like that, they would have known by now. But anyway, with my old channel, I'm feverishly trying to chalk up views so I can become a person again. And with this one, well, I'm right on the outside, and I'm a long way away from that 10,000 views. So it's a labour of love. So please subscribe anyway. So started off, talked about Axiom of Sound. I'll plug him again. Remember, I'll be uploading a link with his tune on it, because he very kindly gave me a track to be able to play for you all tonight, and give him a bit of support. You won't regret it. He's got lots and lots of great music. Now, another band I'd like to talk about a little bit is Orison Space Collective. They're a band that's based in sort of Denmark and Sweden. And when I say Denmark and Sweden, the reason they're called Orison Space Collective is that they tend to meet around the Orison region, where there's a bridge between Denmark and Sweden, and they very often jam over in the Copenhagen side of the bridge, and that's where they got their name from. And Space Collective, they have this thing in common with Hawkwind. I don't know if I've mentioned Hawkwind before, but perhaps even more so in that, yes, they're space rockers like Hawkwind are, and yes, they're very heavily influenced by Hawkwind. In the space rock scene, everyone is. But where they do have a great similarity, I think, with Hawkwind is basically a bit of a revolving door policy of the band. In the early days of Hawkwind, there really was a revolving door policy. There were people coming and going as they felt like it at first, and until they, I suppose, released their first actual album, and that the band started to stabilise a bit. But even so, over the years, Hawkwind's had a great deal of line-up changes, and it's giving different flavours and characters to their music depending on who's been there. And Orison Space Collective, they've been going since I think it's around about 2006. They put out their first album, and I think around about 2004 they started jamming together. Trying to read out a lineup of the band would be like reading out a list from the Danish phone book, I think. One of the more notable permanent members is a character known as Dr. Space, who was is an American. He generally does their talking for them when he's announcing the musicians and so forth. He does the talking, and he's quite obviously American by his accent. And Dr. Space, some of the bands that they're associated with Orison Space Collective, well, they're a bit of an honour roll themselves. So Sula Basana, Causa Sui, Electric Moon, Sienna Root, Papier, they're all bands that I've got a few examples of. Great music. I'm just trying to keep all my notes together. They've fallen all over the place. They've put out about 25 records since 2006. Now, everything's always different. One of the features of the band is they tend to be live jams, which they record and generally release the music for anyone to use. So I might actually see if I can get in contact with some of those guys, and if they'll let me play one of their songs before one of the shows one night. And who knows, if I'm really cheeky, and maybe I could talk one of them in the coming on the show for the interview as well. Who knows? But they're fantastic musicians. They cover a lot of styles. Very easy to do, I suppose, when you've got such a large musical membership. And also, I think I've mentioned in the show last week that space rock, I think, is a great overall genre, and it is possible to play a lot of subgenres under that, and that is clearly shown with Orison Space Collective. They play a lot of jazzy stuff, a lot of rocky stuff, They go into reggae sometimes, which I suppose those three styles are very commonly coming up in space rock. They do have a sitar player who plays quite well, and great guitar, great drums. They're very well put together lineup of musicians, especially since they are such a motley crew, for want of a better word, that just all floating in and out of the band. The other thing I wanted to talk about is I know I'm often prone to talk a little bit about Hawkwind, and not ashamed of it, because they're basically the central pillar of space rock in my mind, and I think most people would agree with me. Maybe other people have other bands that are on their favourites list, but Hawkwind are the progenitors, and everyone's got to pay lip service to them. There's no doubt about it. Last night, I had the opportunity to listen to Hawkwind live at the Roundhouse 2017. I was just totally blown away by that gig. Look, I'm no stranger to Hawkwind's music. I've been a big Hawkwind fan since 1980, and once I've stopped rabbiting on about the Roundhouse gig, I might actually tell you how I got into Hawkwind. I did think I would turn that off, but I hadn't. So I've been a big fan of Hawkwind since 1980. Over the time, listened to a lot of their music. It was very difficult for me in Australia to hear Hawkwind music, because they were, as far as alternative goes, they were right left the field of alternative, and it was very difficult to get into their records. There was a couple of import shops in Sydney, and if you made the trip all the way into Sydney, you could sort of go in there and just see what they had, and sometimes, if you were lucky, they'd have one or two Hawkwind albums, which of course I'd pick up. Much easier these days with the internet and so forth to pick these things up. But I heard a lot of their material over the years, and especially in recent years, being hooked in with the internet and YouTube and things like that, it's not hard at all to get onto one of Hawkwind's gigs, of which they've played many, of course. But this is a real standout. I think for the live Hawkwind gigs, Space Ritual obviously springs to mind first and foremost. There's a big Hawkwind gig. I mean, they've released the album of it, and they did sort of do like a replay of the Space Ritual tour not so long ago, and there is video footage of it available, and that is sort of unique, because back then they were young and raw and lots of energy. Many people accused Hawkwind of not being very good at their music and their skills, but I don't think anyone could rightfully say anything like that now. I think you'd find it hard to find a band that has been playing gigs as long as Hawkwind, and if you were to compare, you'd have to look at someone like, say, AC/DC or the Rolling Stones, who have been going forever. But whereas over the last many years, there've been bands that have only played irregular gigs. You know, they'll do a big tour every couple of years and that sort of thing. Well, Hawkwind play very regularly, and so a lot of that rawness from the Space Ritual days, I think, would have disappeared when you come up to the second big landmark gig that I think that they played, would be the Palace Springs gig, or gigs, and that has been a particular favourite of mine for many years. A friend of mine had the video live at Palace Springs, and again, it was just like discovering Hawkwind for new, and I loved it at the time, and just about wore his video out till he got sick of me coming over and saying, "Oh, I'll play that," and he lent it to me for a while. Played it a lot, but lost contact with that until recent years when, as I said, I can get it on the internet. But that brings us up to live at Hawkwind's live at the Roundhouse 2017. That is absolutely a landmark gig. I think it was like seeing Hawkwind for the first time. New. They just played so well, and of course you've got the lights and special effects. That's a given. They've had it down pat with their light show for a long time. But yeah, the gig started off a little bit slow, I thought. The first couple of songs were an acoustical set, and at first I was thinking, what's going on here? Are they going to do sort of like a folky thing or an unplugged, or it wasn't quite what I was expecting. And then they got into the electric stuff later on, but I was getting so excited and overwhelmed by the playing during the gig that I thought back to how they started, and I thought, well, actually, it was, in a way, it was a demonstration of their confidence, of their competence as musicians, because they got out there and pretty well played acoustical with no effects and very limited light show, and I think they quite ably show that they're quite able to play their instruments without being buried under a wash of effects. But then, of course, as things went on, they got warmed up very quickly. Hawkwind, I wouldn't know how many times they play a year, but I seem to get the impression that they probably play a reasonably big gig monthly, and it really shows they were absolutely tight as a band, and their playing was really amazing. And with the tightness of the band, I know there was one particular point there where within the space of a few seconds, they did two key changes and changed their tempo, and they did it so smoothly. And I thought, how much must these guys practice? And they're all mates, and they play together a lot, and they've played together a long time, despite the membership changes and that. Okay, but this has been a going concern for a long time. But many aspects there, I think they really did show what an experienced band they are. Just the tightness of their playing, the choice of repertoire and how they mixed it and arranged it in together. Absolute seminal album, I think, and so I highly recommend too that you try and get a hold of live at the Roundhouse. And these days, I think the best place to get hold of Hawkwind material is through Cherry Red Records. You can look them up on the internet, and Hawkwind have been releasing their stuff through Cherry Red Records for a while. And yeah, have a listen to it. It's to me, I was just sitting back there, and I was waxing lyrical. I got quite a few friends who were Hawkwind fans, and I was typing messages out to someone periodically. Go, have you seen this? You know, it was just so incredible. I just sat there transfixed last night watching this thing, and best Hawkwind experience I've ever had, and I've had many. So yeah, I'd highly recommend that you get into that, and I'm really happy to see that the Hawkwind are reaching this level as a band. And if anyone were to try to tell me that they haven't got their act together as musicians, well, I'd have to throw that on the table, because I think they really showed an extreme good musicianship, but also musical maturity. And I know space rock is perhaps not everyone's cup of tea, but you just could not deny the aplomb which they played the music. So moving right along, how did I get into Hawkwind? Well, I mean, I think everyone's got their "How did I get into Hawkwind" story, and a lot of them have been written because not so long ago, someone got the very clever idea to write a bit of a book for Dave Brock, basically the oldest serving member of Hawkwind now, and certainly one of the founder members. And everyone wrote about how Hawkwind had changed their lives and their experiences with Hawkwind. And I'm in there. I wrote it too, and I was looking at the Hawkwind site, and someone said, "Well, please, everyone, could you try and keep your entries down to below so many words?" I wrote back to him. I said, "I think I might have beat a few more words over that." And he came back and quoted me the exact number of words. I was way over the limit, and I said, "Oh, sorry." And he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll let it go. But we just want people to try and sort of keep it down to a limit." But how I got into Hawkwind, it's a long and convoluted story, but started with the death of John Lennon. Funnily enough, back in those days, I was just out in the field, and being a little bit young and silly, I thought the right thing to do was to join the Navy, and so I did. And I joined the Navy, and I had this romance of the sea idea and things. The reality of the situation was a bit of marching to start with, but a lot of long boring hours minding the store, watching machinery on a ship, and losing a lot of sleep. But one day there, I was due to head off on leave, and heard the news that John Lennon had been shot, and it's just incredible, because just couldn't believe it. And despite the fact that in my position of life, you might have expected that there was a little bit on the straight side. The haircut looks a bit straight too, I know, but as one of my friends described me, he said he's an undercover hippie, and that's I knew some guys. They were all musicians, all living together, and not a squat. They were paying rent, but it was, might as well have been a squat. They were living above a butcher shop in a suburb called Belmore, and all day, all I did was listen to Led Zeppelin and play guitar and things like that. And because they were so much in the music, I was sort of, it was the obvious spot to go, and I headed over there to see if they'd heard about what happened to John Lennon. And I showed up there, and no one was there, but the door was open, and I thought, well, what's going on here? And I walked inside, and there's this hippie with long hair and a beard sitting there on the floor that I'd never seen before, and I knew these guys pretty well. So I thought, who's this guy? And I said, "Oh, where's Adam?" And he goes, "I don't know, he's not home." And I said, "I don't think I've met you before." And he goes, "No, I'm Dave." And I said, "Oh, I'm John." And we're both just sort of sitting there staring at each other, because he's probably thinking, what's this guy in a uniform doing here? And I'm thinking, here, is this guy breaking into their place to steal their guitars or something? Or, is he legit or what? And in the end, I said, "Oh, I just thought I'd drop in and see Adam, because I heard John Lennon had been shot, and it was a bit freaky. So I thought I just wanted to talk to someone about it." And he goes, "That's why I'm here too, And then we just started talking about music and things like that, and it broke the ice, and we all sort of talked about the Beatles and John Lennon and music, and mourned his death on the day. But it was the start of a long friendship. I still know the guy today. where he is now, he's living in North Hollywood, and he's actually quite a successful animator, because he was always an artistic sort of type, and his life was going nowhere for a long time. And then one day suddenly announced that he was going to put together an artist's portfolio and try and get himself in the university to do arts. And I don't think anyone really took him seriously at the time. He'd been bumming around for a few years doing nothing, but he got this portfolio together, and next thing he was in university. And then I didn't hear from him for a while, ran into him, and turned out he was doing TV logos for some of the TV stations. You know, when they put an advert on and then they're finished with the ads and they go back to the station, they put a station logo up. Well, he was designing those, and since then he's gone further. He's produces cartoons and animations over there in North Hollywood. And good luck to him. But one night we went to the pub together, and we're in there, and this was 1980, later in the year, and it was the era when bands stopped playing so much in the pubs in Australia, and it used to be a good place to see a band, but there was a DJ there, and he was playing music, and it was a bit of a biker pub, so it wasn't really the best place to be running a disco, to tell you the truth. But he was getting around it by playing some stuff. He was playing at B-52s, and they were a little bit on the outside, alternative side at the time. I know they later got in the commercial group, but that first album they put out was fairly unusual sounding at the time, and so they used to play stuff like that on. And Dave said to me, "I'm going to go up and ask him if they'll play some Hawkwind." I said, "Who's Hawkwind?" And I mean, the name sort of sounded familiar, because it's just that sort of name, a familiar sounding name. And he said, "Well, you'll have a listen and you'll hear." So he went up and he spoke to the guy, and then he comes back, and I said, "Oh, is he going to play some Hawkwind?" And he said, "No." I said, "Oh, why not? Hasn't he got any?" He said, "Oh, he says that he doesn't think the audience will appreciate Hawkwind here." So, well, how will we know? We've never heard them. And so I went up and asked him if he'd play some Hawkwind, and he said, "Oh, look, that doesn't really sit in with the people here. They're not into Hawkwind." I said, "Well, I'm one of the people here, and this guy has mentioned this Hawkwind band, and I haven't heard him, and I'm curious. I want to hear him." And he said, "No, well, I don't think that it's appropriate music for this place." And I said, well, I'll tell you what, you know, like, I'm one of the locals here, and I'm sure that a lot of the people here now will be curious to hear Hawkwind, so you should play it. And so we got around, we started talking to people around the pub, and we're getting everyone to go and hassle this guy to play some Hawkwind. And I kept on going up and asking him periodically, and it got to be a bit of a joke with us. I said, "Oh, Johnny, you're going to go and ask him to play some Hawkwind?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I'll go and ask him to play some Hawkwind." And as the night wore on, I was drinking more and more, and I was starting to get a little bit under the weather. And I went up to him, and he knew what I wanted, of course. And he goes, "Oh, no, you want me to play some Hawkwind?" And I led forward. I said, "Yeah, well, just play one thing by Hawkwind once so we can hear it." And I was a bit wobbly on the feet, and I sort of stumbled, and I hit the turntable, and right in the middle of the song, across the record. It sounded terrible. And I was like, "Oh, sorry, man, I didn't mean that. I've had a couple of drinks, and I'm a bit unsteady on my feet." And he said to me, "If I play some Hawkwind, will you just fuck off?" And I said, "Tell you what, mate, that's a deal." I said, "You play some Hawkwind, I'll fuck off. I'll listen to the song, and then I'll go home." And that's what he did. He played some Hawkwind, and he played Spirit of the Age, and I loved it, you know. And there was no way that we were going to get him to play any more Hawkwind, but I was talking to Dave, and we later ended up nicknaming him the Hobbit, because with his long hair and beard, he sort of looked a little bit like a gnome, and we already knew a guy called Gnome, so we called him the Hobbit. Actually, the Hobbit fit him pretty well because he sort of had little hairy feet as well. He was about 5 foot nothing tall, and so the name fit him really well, the Hobbit. And he goes, well, I know someone who's got some Hawkwind albums. And I said, oh, great, you know. So we rode over there, and as luck would have it, they had they had Quark Strange as the charm there, and Doremi fa sol la ti do, however you like to pronounce it. Used to just Doremi fa sol la ti do. So we listened to those, and it was mind-bending stuff. And he said, oh, I've got Space Ritual at home, but it's scratched, you know. And so the next day I was over his place to listen to Space Ritual, and it just got better from there. And I ended up, I moved in with a guy in a suburb called Rockdale, which wasn't far from where I heard these albums, and he was a bit of a wild boy, but it was suitable for me because I could just sort of stay there, go and come back when I was on leave. And I came back one day, and there he is having a big fist fight with the Croatian neighbours next door, and the guy's wife coming out and trying to scratch his eyes out and all that because his dog was jumping over the fence and taking their chickens. But anyway, we'd done our dash with the landlord, and the landlord kicked us out. And so we had a farewell party, and after the farewell party, what should I find in my room but a cassette tape with In Search of Space and Warriors on the Edge of Time on the cassette tape, a 90-minute cassette tape. And I didn't get the chance to listen to it initially. We were busy with a sudden move. You know, we had to get out of town pretty quick. And when we settled into the new place, we all decided to have a housewarming party, any excuse for a party. And I put this album on, and it was so intense that a lot of people couldn't actually cope with it. I mean, they liked it, but it was so much like having an LSD trip, just listening to the music, that some people were finding it a little bit hard to take. And it was just the start of a long love affair with Hawkwind for me and for a lot of us. And I've got to say, over the years, anyone that I've mentioned Hawkwind to, usually they haven't heard of them. But once you start playing a bit of Hawkwind to them, I've had a very good strike rate. Very, very few people have said, "Oh no, don't like that." I mean, it's the sort of band you either love or hate, I suppose. But I've got to say, probably 99.9% of people have just loved them, and it's been a long road for me with them, and enjoyed the music over many years, and it's made the way open for me, I suppose, to listen to a lot of other psychedelic type bands and music. So it was quite logical to be listening to stuff like Tangerine Dream, and of course Pink Floyd I'd already heard of. They're pretty tame really compared to Hawkwind, I think, but also a good band. So I'm very glad that that something good came out of that. I mean, I don't. In this day and age, a lot of people would sort of criticise the Beatles and go, "Oh, well, they're not that good," or anything like that, and overrated and sort of thing. But I think you got to put it in the time. They started a movement, and that splintered out into many other things. And I certainly think when the Beatles broke up, although it was a sad thing at the time, it was probably for the best, because they were very soon going to be blown out of the water by many great groups, Led Zeppelin amongst them. There were to come, and of course Eric Clapton and Cream and so forth. They were all mates. Eric Clapton was a good friend of George Harrison's, but you have to put it in perspective with the time, I think, and it's likewise with people who talk about some of the early space rock and psychedelic groups, Hawkwind amongst them. You've got to put them in their time. Things have moved on, but I think one thing that you've got to say about Hawkwind is they've also moved with the times. They've still got their traditional repertoire, but they haven't been frightened to try new things, new equipment. They've tried psychedelic versions of the new styles of music that are getting around. I think they're still basically in the rock mode, and I think that's a good thing. But they have tried electronic things and so forth, and they move into the areas that they feel they need to get their message across. And there's always a message in their music. It's not just freaky and spacey sounds. If you listen to their lyrics, there's a lot of intense stuff going on there. Messages about politics, the environment, and how science affects our daily life, or will affect our daily life. And over the years, they have put out some really deep meaning stuff, which might get lost under the spacey music. But for a true fan, I think we tend to have a listen, and in time, even though you mightn't directly listen so closely to the lyrics the first time, or in time you do start to hear lines and pick things up. And always looking forward to new things from them. And that was another thing that made me happy about that Roundhouse gig, just hearing them and hearing that they had so much vitality. And that was 2017. They're not getting tired, and I'm hoping that things will keep going for a long while. They've still got something to contribute, and in recent years they haven't stopped putting out albums. And I don't know, some of my friends who actually know Hawkwind members, that might be able to contribute a bit of knowledge there. But I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they put out another album this year, because they last couple of years they do seem to have been putting something out every year, and things seem to be moving pretty well with them as far as inspiration goes. So here's hoping. So another thing I thought I'd talk about is you might have noticed I'm talking about my second favourite subject now is me. Some of you might have noticed how I've used an Einstein logo for my Hadron Converter logo. You might wonder what that's all about. Well, the name Hadron Converter, when I heard about the Hadron Collider in CERN finally discovering the Higgs boson particle, I thought it was very exciting, and I was looking for a name for a band at the time, because I was playing with a band called Double Helix Conception, which we started off as a two-piece, and therefore the Double Helix Conception, and we later became a three-piece, and almost at the same time a four-piece. In that we did have one band member who was was doing videos for us, that being Strayhawk, and things were starting to go in a direction that I wasn't totally satisfied with Double Helix, in that over the years I've always wanted to form a space rock band, and we started off doing that, but we were starting to move towards sort of depressing ballads and all that sort of thing. And listen, I don't mind progressive music, and I don't mind the odd ballad, but truly what I've always wanted to do is play space rock, and there's been a few false starts in that direction. I ended up playing for this band many years ago in the what was it, the early 90s, called Crying Mind, and that was the sort of really the one that got away from me. I put an advertisement up at the guitar shop saying that I wanted to play in or form a space rock band, and these guys got onto me, and they're actually more in the heavy rock heavy rock sort of mold, but they were interested in some of the names that I'd mentioned on my list as stylistic influences, that being Pink Floyd and Hawkwind and Led Zeppelin and things like that. Start playing with them, and it was coming together really well. I was playing keys in the band, and we had a fella from Chile was the guitar player, absolutely brilliant guitar player, could not keep time at all. His brother was the drummer. His brother could keep time, so that sort of kept us together. And a Greek fella who was writing the lyrics, and a really great singer. He'd done sort of proper singing training, and we were playing some great things. And unfortunately, it's the old story, isn't it, where egos come into play. As far as the guitar player was concerned, he was the focus of the band and the main thing, and he didn't really want anyone competing with him, and so he wanted me to quieten down a little bit with the keyboards, not sort of try and be so adventurous with the keyboards, and he wanted the bass player to just play very basic bass, whereas we thought that it was good that everyone was really pumping to try and sort of have this concept of a super group, even though we weren't super players. That every musician did the best that they could to make it really sound interesting. And it was a little bit like our commitments. We were playing and practicing together, and when we shut up and stopped arguing and started playing, it was really great, because at the same time, this sort of musical competition was creating really spectacular music. And I know we played one particular gig that was supposed to be a test gig for at a party before our coming first gig. I'd managed to talk my way into an agency gig, so we're on our way if we had got there. We played at this party at Cronulla near the beach, and that worked out well, because one of the songs in our repertoire was called "On the Beach." Start off with, there we are, we're playing. No one was taking any notice of us, and there were a couple of guys playing footy on the grass, and I thought, oh, this is going to be ugly, you know. But anyway, we just got on with playing, and then before I noticed, there seemed to be a bit of a crowd, and people seemed to be enjoying it. So I thought, yeah, there's a few people starting to arrive at the party now, and it's going well. And so we just kept on playing, and we played our set and didn't think any more about it. And then when we stopped and we realised, you know, there's quite a few people there, we were finding it hard to get out through the crowd, just to go out the front and get a bit of air and that. And as we're on our way out, the police were on their way in there to stop us. They'd been trying to stop us for ages, and then they said, "You guys the band?" And we said, "Yeah, we're the band." And they goes, "Well, you know, we're here to shut you down. You know, we've been trying to get through the crowd to get to you, because apparently the sound, we were so loud, the sound was travelling, and all the people were coming up from the beach around Cronulla, and we literally started the riot. There was about 1,500 people there, so it was one of those magic moments. But it was also a little bit like the commitments. When the time came for us to play that first agency gig, we had a big blow-up argument 1 hour before we were due to go there to play, and we couldn't piece it back together. And it was very embarrassing. I had to ring up the pub and ring up the agency and say, look, we're just split up. And for a couple of years after that, funnily enough, the guy was still ringing me up and said, "Oh, you got a band going at the moment that we can use?" And I said, "No, not at the moment." But so it was always sort of my idea to play for a space rock band, and so I didn't want to get moved away from that essential mission, and the thing's the same now. So I'm glad that I'm actually in contact with so many fellow space rockers, because even though I'm not playing in a band, I'm playing solo, and there are a lot of guys out there that I'm collaborating with on a one-off basis, and it's working out well for us all, because we'll do our own projects, and every now and then we play on each other's projects. So it's good. You can stay true to your own personal mission, but at the same time you get the benefit and input from other musicians, and it gives you a bit of a different flavour. You learn and so forth. So as things were starting to turn away from my idea of where we should be going with double helix conception, well, I naturally thought I've got to start trying to do things myself, and that's when I started on the great equipment collection thing, and got myself a cheap 4-track Tascam multi-track, just a portable digital one. Wonderful thing. Did probably my first 6 tracks with it, and it really, for such a cheapie, it worked really well. But I needed a name, and this thing with the Large Hadron Collider, I thought, oh, that's not a bad idea. I wasn't going to call myself Higgs boson or something like that, and I thought, if I call myself Hadron Collider, there's no doubt in my mind that someone's going to call themselves Hadron Collider, and I do believe there's about 3 bands out there at least called Hadron Collider, because when I go to put my stuff up on Spotify and that, they're often saying, if I do a search for myself to see if I come up on the search, I'm often finding these Hadron Collider bands coming up. So Hadron Converter was a stage further from that, where Hadron Converter was my idea of a fictional device to power a spaceship. Basically, the idea being, one physicist was talking about that now that they've discovered the Higgs boson, well, that's what turns on the properties of mass, then maybe one day it will be possible for us to travel at greater than light speeds, because if we can turn off the Higgs boson, it recreates the conditions of the universe at the start of the Big Bang, where things expanded considerably more quickly than the speed of light. And the idea being that I could have this device in my spaceship which turned off the Higgs boson in front of me, but left it alone behind me, so the actual pressure of space could allow me to surf in space. And playing with the theories of relativity like this, obviously Einstein had to play a part, and so I also think Einstein is intrinsically cool, isn't no doubt about it. He had the hair, a hairstyle like that, but he had a good sense of humour, a bit of a ladies' man too, I hear. I suppose those ladies out there can't resist a physicist, despite what Robert Calvert said. So I thought that was a thing. So I thought I'd come up with a logo with a bit of a space background, an image of a spaceship which is rushing along on the wave of the Higgs boson, and well, on the wave of the universe behind them, with the Higgs boson turning off the universe in front, so allowing to basically surf on the power of the universe. And I thought, well, that's a good idea for a logo. So that's why the Einstein figure and the idea behind the logo. And I think at the end of the day, it was a good move coming up with the name Hadron Converter. Some people have said to me, "Oh, you mean Hadron Collider?" And I said, "No, I don't. I mean Hadron Converter." I had a definite idea about it. So probably rabbited on enough about that, except to say this week I'll be releasing another video. Little bit different for me. I've just gone on, so I didn't want to be swung towards progressive or ballads or things like that. And this latest release that I'm putting out, it's not a ballad, but a lot of it, I think, maybe you might group in a more progressive sort of area, not so spacey. Normal programming will be resumed, but it was just an idea that came to me. I wanted basically to show off my new guitar. I bought myself an Epiphone Wildcat after a suggestion by a fellow space rocker out there who said to me, "Oh, look, he has a rock band as well," and I'll probably try to have a chat with him in the future too. But he suggested that his guitar player had one, and he was very happy with it, and it was just what I sort of thing I wanted to get something that would give it a nice sort of sweet sound, but also get pretty ugly if I wanted it to. So it gets those really nice, sweet, jazzy sounds, but it can also get pretty nasty. And I'm actually very happy that since I've bought it, it turned out to be everything I expected of it, for one. But for two, I've seen a few other space rockers out there with exactly the same type of guitar with the Bigsby tremolo on it. I do have a Stratocaster as well, but I just wanted to get into that type of thing. And with this latest musical piece, which will be coming out on Thursday, I wanted to show off basically the sounds of that guitar. So I made a bit of a chord progression on that, and came up with a bit of an idea of that. And I won't say any more about it because I'll try and leave the video to tell the story for me. But it's also one of my rare and new excursions into making a video myself. Mostly I have a partnership with Strayhawk, who does my videos. No doubt about it, he does better videos than I do. But thank you, Strayhawk. He has also given me a lot of good advice to help me make this video. And we've talked a lot about video making over the last couple of weeks, and that as well, where he's shared his knowledge with me, and I much appreciate that. But it won't be the end of me doing things with Strayhawk either, because we've both agreed that we like doing stuff together, and we've been cooperating for I think at least 3 years now, and it's always been great. He does great videos, and I mentioned it before. He's the absolute king of the space rock video. He's covered all of Hawkwind's repertoire, I believe. If there's something he's missed out, I'm sure he's working on getting it, but he's been very systematic to try and get through all those things. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. It's one of my excursions in the video making, and I hope in the future to maybe do as much as 50% of my own videos. Strayhawk's of course got his own personal projects going as well. He releases his own personal music compositions as well, and does videos as well. But we'll still be working together on a regular basis, and pushing the limits of space ever further. And another just quick thing that I'd like to mention is, I don't know how many of you have heard of it, but there is another sort of social site out there called Quora. It's Quora. And that's quite an interesting one as well. It's basically a question and answers type type forum where people ask questions about things they want to learn about, and experts, sometimes real experts. I mean, I'm on there, so I don't know if I qualify as a real expert, but I do answer some questions. But there are some pretty qualified people on there answering the questions. There are real pilots and real astronauts and real musicians and teachers and lawyers and all sorts of things. It doesn't matter what the subject is. Questions and answers. It's a great forum to be on to gather information. So I recommend you have a look at that too. I've been doing that for a while. So that's the end of the show for today. I hope you enjoyed my little rave on things. Like I said, please subscribe, and also please check out Axiom of Sound. And next week I will be playing a little bit from the La Luna, and if the technical things go well, I'll be getting Mike Hewitson from La Luna on the show as well to have a bit of a talk about his music, and I want to make that a bit of a regular feature in the future too, to try at least monthly get one of you guys out there. Look, this show is directed towards space rock fans, but it's also directed towards space rock musicians. It's a forum where I want to get you guys together. Let's talk about our art and throw some ideas around with each other. Tell each other about the music. Get in contact with each other, guys, and do some collaboration. And the space rock genre will benefit from it. There's a lot of great bands out there. We need more. I think it's basically an unexplored genre. It needs to go further, and it's up to us to do it. So anyway, I wish you all good night, and enjoy your week, and keep a lookout on Thursday for when I release my latest track. And I'll see you next week.